ever fantasized of taking part in your preferred sport and attending sessions, exercises, workouts, tournaments, games, even competitions, all for the one sport that you love, only to have people tell you that cheerleading actually isn't a sport? Well, that's how being a cheerleader feels. As you can see, I am a member of the UIS cheerleading team, and we actually have competed in cheerleading competitions in Orlando, Florida, and we actually have won scholar championship trophies in the past. Today, I am going to talk to you about why cheerleading should be considered a sport. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the primary definition of the term sport is considered to be an activity that involves physical exertion and skill in which a single individual or a team will compete against one another the others for the purpose of entertainment. Well, in cheerleading, you see cheerleaders lifting each other up, you see us tumbling, you see us holding each other's weight. We even have competitions as well. So, the real question is, why is the belief that cheer is not a sport still even existent? First, I will begin with the main reason as to why cheerleading should be considered a sport. Second, I will discuss the classification that makes cheerleading a sport by comparing it to what the classifications of sports actually are. So, in other words, what makes sport a sport? Finally, I will discuss the perceptions of how others view cheer and why it should be viewed the way that it is. Cheer should be a sport because, I'm sorry, cheer should, cheer should Cheer should be a sport because cheerleaders will receive the same benefits as other athletes. Given from the National Liberty of Medicine in Bethesda, Maryland in December 2012, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, well, the NCAA, was developed in 1906 to protect its athletes, but cheerleaders are not included under this realm. Although it is not recognized by, although the sport is not recognized by the NAACP, I'm sorry. A study by Thomas et al. In 2004 demonstrated that the physical fitness of a cheerleader is similar to that of any other colleague sport by comparing results on various physical tests, such as push-ups, body composition, things in that matter. There are very few colleges that offer scholarships for cheer. Given from the NCSAS college recruiting in 2002, here at UIS, we do not have any scholarships, nor are we offered any, and this makes things such as uniforms harder for us cheerleaders to get new uniforms. So, what exactly is a sport? Sport is defined as an activity that has set rules or customs that determines how the activity should be done. Given from the Stanford philosophy, a game becomes a sport by the following criteria. The game of the skill must be physical, and the game has a wide following and achieves a certain level of stability. In other words, the game must be dependent on the exercise of physical skills. And all of these are what cheer has. Numerous other sports, including gymnastics, acrobatics, aerobics, and dance, are all related to cheer. All of these sports, including cheer, demand that the athletes be skilled, gifted, trained, and exact. In coloring, there are several acrobatics that must be performed, like lifting a person into the air, tossing them, and accurately catching them as well. To ensure everyone's safety and that their leaders don't get hurt while doing the performance, they need to receive the proper training just as other athletes would. This demonstrates the necessity for extensive training, practice and cheering in order to stay safe and prevent accidents. Now, in cheerleading, you need a lot of physical effort and expertise. You need to be flexible, strong, balanced in order to leap. And if they are not properly taught, the cheerleaders will jump in an awkward stance, which is hard on them. And they also need a lot of practice to refine and sharpen their emotions in preparation for competition. So, cheer is not just GOs and kicks and jumps. And I feel like maybe we should move on to how cheer is perceived and why it should not be perceived the way that it is. Cheerleading is not just strictly about yelling and standing on the sidelines, yet, that is how many people view it. Stated in a text written at Syracuse University back in 1997 by Rajeshari S. He's quoting a young lady named Laura Davis in 1998. She describes the popular image of cheerleaders. She says, for most of us, the very word cheerleader conjures up of notions of a petite blonde female jumping up and down on the sidelines of men's sporting events. Cheerleaders are perceived as being there to support the boys and to provide flashy or sexy entertainment for the crowd. In other words, cheer is just seen as a fan club for the crowd and other athletes, yet we're steady being underappreciated for the work that we have to do to actually do the work that we have to do. So, all of these sports, including cheer, demand that the athletes be skilled, gifted, trained, and exact. The real perception of cheer in the background, we have morning workouts, we have night workouts, we have game days where we have to come in earlier just to prepare and practice and make sure that we can actually do the things that we need to do. Just like athletes, we also can injure ourselves as well just from performing the actions that we practice. So even if we were to practice it, there is always a chance that we could still injure ourselves. I mean, I'm a living witness right now. My knee is messed up. So I just injured my knee. So saying that cheerleading is not a sport, it makes no sense because it meets all the criteria for a sport. It's critical that cheerleading should be accepted as a sport and given the attention it merits. So, first I talked about the reasoning as to why cheerleading should be considered a sport. Then, second, I discussed the classifications of cheerleading and I compared it to the classifications of sport. Finally, I discussed the perceptions of how others view cheer and why it should not be viewed that way. So, when you start to hear someone say that cheer is not a sport, or when you start to think that cheer is not a sport, just remember that in the long run, cheerleading involves more than just standing on the sidelines and kicking. It calls for highly developed physical prowess, athleticism, therefore meaning it is unreasonable to exclude cheering from the definition of the word sport. Thank you.